I had an Uncle George. And Uncle George was my father's brother. And he loved my mother's cooking. He was married, but he loved to come to our house because we had these very, very intense political arguments. And so one of my responsibilities as an 8-year-old was to serve the adults drinks. So I actually became a bartender at a very young age. But Uncle George was a radical. He traveled around the world with Paul Robeson. And Paul Robeson was an actor and a singer and a star football player at Rutgers University, one of the first African-American famous athletes. And he was accused of being a communist, and so was my uncle. And they were considered pariahs. They were considered people who, shouldn't be included in democratic debate. They were considered people who should be denounced because of their political views. But Uncle George B. was a character. Uncle George B. loved to travel. He loved to read the newspaper, loved politics. And one day, as I served him a drink, he said, "Laura, have you read the New York Times today?" And I said, "No, Uncle George, I haven't read the New York Times." He says, "Well, I'll be back in 2 weeks, and we will have a discussion about the headlines on the front page of the New York Times. Do you understand?" "Yes, Uncle George." And I felt pressure. I mean, I had to go to my father and say, "Okay, Daddy, where do you put your New York Times? When is it coming?" So my father took me to the newsstand the day Uncle George was supposed to arrive. He gave me the front page first, which was a big deal because he liked to get the front page first. So he gave me the front page and he said, "Start reading." So I went through all the headlines and then I discovered, oh my gosh, there are other parts of the story I have to keep reading. Oh, look, it's half a page. How am I going to finish this before Uncle George comes? But sure enough, he came for dinner. After dinner, he said, "Laura, I want to see you. I want to see you in the living room." So we went to the living room, and he said, "Now, what do you think of what our government is doing in this matter?" And then I had to explain my positions. And so from then on, over the next couple of years, at least once a month, Uncle George would include me in the adult conversations about current events. And he said, "I expect you to have an opinion about these things. And it's important that you know these things because you have a good mind." And so I was told I had a good mind by Uncle George, who was, smart by everyone's, saying so. My parents thought he was smart. Everybody thought he was smart. So a smart man told me I was smart. So I was off to the races.